Welcome to another episode of Batavia Spotlight, where we get to know more about community organizations and businesses here in Batavia and in our local communities. I'm Ellen Huxtable, your host. And today I'm very pleased to welcome Gloria Bunce from Casa, Kane County, and where Gloria is the executive director. So thank you for joining us, Gloria.
Well, thank you, Ellen. It's a real privilege to be here.
Tell us about Casa. What does Casa stand for, and what do you do?
My pleasure. So Casa, Kane County, Casa, the acronym stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates. Casa, Kane County is one of nearly 35 nonprofit volunteer organizations that advocate for abused and neglected children within the juvenile court system in the Illinois area. So we cover the entire county of Kane, which is our population is over 500,000, and we have nearly 35 sister programs and nearly 1,000 nationwide.
So what ages are the children and the teenagers that you're able to service?
That's another good question, one that's asked often. So Casa, Kane County does not get involved with abuse, neglect, and especially abuse and neglect cases until there is a shelter care hearing. So we all have heard through in the media, and we all understand who the Department of Child and Family Services are. But when a child is brought in within 48 hours into care, they are brought into what we call a shelter care hearing. And then Casa is and becomes a true party to the case. So at that point, there is Casa, the state's attorney, the judge, the public defender. And again, we are an instant party to the case and an officer of the court system.
So do you advocate for every child that's in that situation?
And yes, since back in 2002, and if you don't mind, I'll go back. So next year is our third decade of advocating for children in abuse and neglect courts. And it all started in 1988. And so every child that comes into abuse and neglect court, we are appointed as their guardian ad litem. So we do have the unique privilege of being a guardian ad litem versus friend of the court, and really the variances, which gives us a little extra credibility, and then also gives us a little bit more power to help children get to the success to where we need them to be. For an example, when kids come into care, it could be from birth to 21. Kids in the system don't emancipate in the state of Illinois until they're 21 years of age. Okay. So what we do is we recruit, train community volunteers to be the Casa Guardian ad litem. So how that kind of all starts off, I have 16 full-time staff members, and we oversee 300 Casa GAL volunteers.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So how is Casa funded?
That's a great question, too. In the state of Illinois, we are a privately funded organization. So a third of our funds come from our annual donations, individuals and businesses. A third come from our grants, foundations, and then the other third come from special event fundraising.
So you're totally self-sufficient financially then? We
are. And so starting, our fiscal year, which is in January, it's almost like kind of starting fresh. However, we have, like our Casa GL volunteers, the one thing that we really pride ourselves at Casa is the consistency. So when volunteers come into the program, we ask them to be consistent with that child and follow their path through the foster care system, as long as that case may be open, which is an average of 3 months. As far as on the funding, the same type of thing. Our loyal donors are just that. They're loyal, they're committed, and they get the bigger picture of what we're trying to accomplish.
So it sounds like you're always looking for people who are willing to volunteer in this capacity.
Yes.
What do you look for in your volunteers? What should people bring to the table if they're thinking about doing this?
And again, I love this question because, it takes everybody. The old saying, it takes a village. We get everyone from that great stay-at-home mom to an appellate court judge, to a banker, to a teacher. You name it. It's all walks of life. But all we ask for and require, you do have to be at least 21 years of age. Mm-hmm. You have to want to commit to this volunteer role because it is a pretty extraordinary position. We hear a lot of times that people want to get involved because of two main reasons. They've been very blessed in their lives, and or they've gone through some of the things that they can help a child going through the foster care has. So regardless, we just want to make sure that emotionally they are ready to set and they have the time commitment.
So how can people get a hold of you to find out more if they think that this is something that they might want to do or they might want to donate to? It sounds like you do fundraising as well, so I'm sure the donations are always much appreciated.
Always welcome.
So if somebody wanted to get involved either on a personal basis or financially or in some other way with you, how do they contact you?
Well, we have a very interactive, comprehensive website that we've spent a lot of time revamping in the last year. So we say volunteer, donate, connect. So wherever you're at in your life, if you're able to give, wonderful. We donations are always welcome, and there's so many different opportunities. So we like to make that more personal. Same as volunteering. On the website, it'll say volunteer, donate, connect.
Okay.
So you connect it, and we get you to the right person.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for telling us about Casa, and I hope that people take up the opportunity to support you and to support the children that you do serve. So thank you so much for telling us a little bit about yourself and the organization.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Hi, I'm Tom Wangler, President of Confident Air. Regular maintenance can prolong the life of your furnace and keep your energy costs to a minimum. Plus, there's less of a chance of a breakdown on a cold winter night. Your furnace needs proper care and attention to keep it running smoothly, so you don't end up paying too much for heating during the cold winter months, or worse yet, with deadly carbon monoxide poisoning. We recommend an annual inspection to ensure safe operation. Confident Air, your trusted home comfort professionals since 1992.
The Kane County Chronicle is your best source for news and information in print and online in the Tri-Cities and Caneland.
This is Chronicle Country. This is Chronicle Country.
This is Chronicle Country.
This is Chronicle Country.
This is Chronicle Country.
Welcome back to Batavia Spotlight. I'm Ellen Huxtable, your host, and I'm here with Patrick Noon, the president and founder of PJN Tax Solutions, Inc., right?
Right.
Good. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me about your company. What do you do and what do you specialize in?
Well, actually, I have two firms. I have a CPA firm located in St. Charles and in Elgin. And it was a few years ago that I started up PJN Tax Solutions Group, which is a tax resolution firm. And our motto or our tagline is that we are the rescue squad for troubled taxpayers.
Okay.
So the definition of a troubled taxpayer would be somebody who's either behind in filing or someone who has a large outstanding balance due and can't write one check to make the IRS go away. We strongly encourage people to not represent themselves when dealing with the IRS. We ask people, prospects, would you go to court without an attorney? And if their answer is no, then why would you want to represent yourself sitting across the table from the IRS? Some prospects, after we get through with our initial proposal, they'll say, well, I can do what you can do. And I say, you may be able to, and you could probably pull your own teeth out too if you had to. But would you not rather have a professional like a dentist do it and reduce the risk of infection and disease? So what we do is we work with people, again, that are either behind in filing or have a large outstanding balance due. And the reason we do that, well, here's four quick reasons why we do it. Number one is taxpayers have rights. A lot of people don't know that. And one of those rights is the right to representation, whereby if the IRS were to call on you, we ask people to play nice and ask the IRS agent for their name, their contact telephone number, and their badge ID number, and let the IRS agent know that you are in the process of securing representation. And once we file what's called a power of attorney form, which tells the IRS that we are representing the taxpayer, by law, the IRS can no longer directly communicate with the taxpayer. Everything goes through us. So all the stress of having to deal with the IRS is off of their backs and onto ours, okay? Another reason you may want to hire a professional is there's a number of new programs that have recently come out known as Fresh Start programs. And the problem is the IRS's inbox is probably 12 inches high and the outbox is probably 3 inches high. They don't have time to go through all the programs with you. We use the latest and greatest cloud-based software. We are always current and up to date on any changes that the IRS makes as the changes are being made. Another reason you might want to consider hiring a professional is it is a federal misdemeanor to not file your income tax return, subject to a $10,000 fine and or imprisonment.
Oh.
And recently in the news, the IRS was allegedly going after Chicago representative, can't remember what his name was, for 4 years, Mel Reynolds.
Okay.
For 4 years of not filing tax returns. And a fourth reason is, before an IRS audit even starts, sitting across from the table from you is an IRS agent, and they're going to ask you about 50 very intrusive questions. Questions that have nothing to do with the numbers on the tax return. Questions that are, where do you live, what kind of house, how many bedrooms, what kind of car do you drive, any boats, planes, country club memberships, all kinds of stuff that you won't see on the tax return. And depending upon how you answer those questions will determine the direction of the audit. And we never let our clients go to that meeting, because God forbid they should say something wrong, because 50% of all referrals to the IRS's Criminal Investigation Division have come from that nice IRS agent sitting across the table from you. And if God forbid you ever do get to the Criminal Investigation Division level, those guys have a 90% conviction rate. So we never let our clients go. We always go and represent them. And again, our process is a real simple 4-step process where, number one, we get the power of attorney, and that stops the IRS from any more direct communication. Step 2 is we pull transcripts, because a lot of times taxpayers lose their W-2s, their
Right.
1099s. So we'll get transcripts. We'll get account transcripts, we'll get tax return transcripts, and we'll get wage and income transcripts. And basically, it's a way for us to know what cards the IRS is holding, okay? We'll find out what they think you owe and what tax returns they're still waiting for. The next step then is, the third step is then we fill out and file all returns that are delinquent, because you can't even talk to them about any type of negotiation until all of your returns are filed. And then the fourth step, after we file the returns, we do a complete financial profile of an individual. We look at their assets, their liabilities, income and expenses, and we put it through our software, and we go through all of the data input to come up with what is the most practical resolution, the best structured plan available. And it could be either a full pay installment plan, a partial pay installment plan. It could be what they call an offer in compromise. You hear that on the radio a lot. Don't put a lot of weight into that, because the IRS only accepts about 40% of all offers in compromise submitted, which means you have less than a 50-50 shot going in that it's going to get approved.
Right.
But the fourth possible solution is what they call hardship filing, or what the IRS calls currently not collectible. And what that means is currently your expenses exceed your income, therefore there's no money left over at the end of the month to pay the IRS for the back taxes. And the IRS will say, okay, fine, we're going to put you on the sidelines while the game goes on. If your situation improves, we'll bring you back into the game and we'll try to set up a payment plan. The good news is the IRS only has 10 years to collect taxes once they've been assessed. So if, theoretically speaking, you were on the sidelines for those 10 years, after that 10-year period comes and goes, everybody hits the reset button and everything starts all over at zero.
So what is the way that the IRS typically first contacts you? If they're going to be questioning what you've sent in, what do they do? What is the thing you need to worry about?
Exactly. I just had a call Saturday when I was in the office from a client. He said, I just got a very disturbing phone call from someone claiming to be the IRS. There's a warrant out for my arrest. So do not pay attention to that. That's a scam that's going on. Typically the IRS, they will issue a number of letters about 4 to 5 weeks apart, a series of about 5 or 6 letters. If by then you don't respond to them, then they will call you, okay? And if you don't, the IRS frowns upon being ignored.
Yes.
So if you do ignore them, they will potentially levy bank accounts, garnish wages, file tax liens on your home. The best thing to do, nowadays, they're actually not that bad to deal with, but you have to keep the lines of communication open with them.
And definitely contact somebody like you.
Yes.
How can somebody find you?
I have 2 offices, one in St. Charles and then one in Elgin. Best number is my cell, which is with me 24 hours a day, 630-415-5296.
And your website and email?
pjntaxsolutions.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us
All right.
today. And thank you for telling us
Thank
about
you
this
for
with
having me.
information that we can probably use and we hope we never have to.
Okay.
And we'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
The Drendel and Jansen's Law Group has practiced law in Aurora since 1961 and in Batavia since 1994.
We focus our energy on representing people and businesses and families in the local community.
We represent clients in Kane and surrounding counties in matters ranging from divorce to wills, business law to zoning.
We focus our efforts on planning and working towards positive resolutions for businesses and families.
When clients need someone to fight for their interests, we're ready, willing, and able to act as aggressive advocates to protect their interests.
Drendel and Jansen's Law Group with offices in Batavia and Aurora and located on the web at batavialaw.com.
Downtown Batavia, always moving by nature. Recreation, nature, the arts, specialty shops, restaurants and services. Downtown is everyone's neighborhood. Come, celebrate, meet friends, unwind.
See you downtown.
Welcome back to Batavia Spotlight. I'm Ellen Huxtable, and I'm here with Dottie Lavoie, who's the owner of College Connections. Well, thank you for joining us, Dottie.
Thank you for inviting me.
So tell us, what exactly is College Connections?
Well, College Connections is a small home-based business. My husband and I, Larry, and I are the sole owners and operators. And we work with families to help them map out a plan for college planning and then navigate through all those different aspects. Larry primarily will work with parents on the financial end. He'll help them with looking at different forms. He'll help them look at varying college costs, tons of other things involved in that aspect. And then I'm lucky, I just get to work with the students, and I work with them primarily on college admissions and selection.
And so how did you start up College Connections? What caused you to start this up?
You know, it really was a natural extension of what I had already done for about 20 years as a guidance counselor at West Aurora High School. The difference is, at the high school level, the big impact came from senior year, where I got to help the students with writing letters of recommendation, where I helped them submit essays, where I got their essays going, where we also worked with scholarships. But that was the biggest impact I made with the students. The rest of college planning was really left to the parents and the students to figure out themselves. So with a caseload of 470 kids at that time and 125 seniors, quite frankly, I was probably glad to just do what I did, because with other duties, I just didn't have time to really pay in-depth attention to my kids. But once I retired, Larry kept telling me, well, you're going to have to reinvent yourself. And I kept thinking, well, what would I really want to do? And it really came to be that I wanted to do college planning, which, again, was a natural extension of what I had already been doing, just more of it.
Okay. So when somebody is working with you, what is the process that's involved in working with you?
You know, it depends on the family, but primarily we do work with parents and students. So we really have two sets of clients. Sometimes we work together, sometimes we work separately, usually in time frames of about an hour, hour and a half. That's about as much as any student or parent can take before they start to glaze over. And sometimes it depends on what needs to get accomplished. The earlier we can get students, the more time we have with them, the more fun we have, the more relaxed it is. The later we get parents, it could be a little bit frustrating, a little bit confusing. Time becomes an issue, not quite as relaxed. And then parents and students will each leave us with assignments. So we don't make any decisions for parents. We're more guiding, we're more information. But they need the information in order to make a correct decision or a decision that's best for their family, depending on what that is. The process really begins when they come in the door. The first thing we need to do is get to know those families. Everyone is unique. Everyone is different. They're all wonderful. But you need to assess what are their goals, what are their values, what are they looking for, where are they in this process? Have they started? What have they done? Are they stuck? What do they think they still need? And then Larry and I go from there and help them develop, okay, here's what we're looking at, here's what we think needs to happen. And then again, Larry's vision is to help them work with the college costs, and again, mine would be working with students in getting all of the documentation and things ready for college. And then the other thing that we really need to address to parents and students are the different changes in the college landscape that keep happening. This business keeps evolving. We have a new government administration. You're going to find changes, you can bet, in student loans. What about forgiveness programs? All those things are going to change. And so we need to keep updated and alert parents to that. It may have an impact on the decision that they finally decide to make.
Right. So for parents, what are some tips? What should they be thinking about?
Well, I think for parents, the first thing, and it probably is one of the most difficult, is they have to have that money talk with their student early on. They need to talk about the cost of college, and to students it probably doesn't mean much, but they need to explain to the students about the cost of college and exactly what they can afford. And they need to be up front with the students right now, because otherwise we could be facing a lot of tears, or parents could be caving in and then facing a lot of financial disaster. That's the first thing. The second thing is they need to be aware that colleges are now quoting 6-year graduation rates. Well, and there's reasons for that, some good, some not so good. But that's going to play into affordability. Right. And so they need to be aware of that. It could be a prime factor, depending on a college's success at graduating their students on time. It could be a prime factor in determining what college you might select.
Exactly.
And then the third one is not to overlook our community colleges or lesser known colleges. They might be more affordable. Of course, community college might be. In some instances, we got to talk about that. But it might be more affordable. They may have more openings, and it might be just a perfect fit for the student.
Exactly. And from the student's perspective, what should the students be thinking about?
Well, again, senior year is a little late. We need to start college preparation early. There's a lot to be done from freshman year through senior year, which we will help map out for the students. But their first thing is to choose their courses carefully, to make sure they're challenging themselves, and to make sure they're developing relationships with both their teachers and their guidance counselors, because they're going to have to tap on those resources down the road for letters of recommendations, affirmation of, how well they can do in classes, their persistence. Those are important things to start with. The second is they need to get involved, which they need to do at the college level as well. But they need to get involved. Colleges are looking for more than test grades and scores and GPA. And I don't think students realize that. I think there's a lot of focus on, well, let's get really good grades and let's do this. But students need to be much more well-rounded. They need to take a look at getting involved in activities. But this isn't just any activity. These are activities that students truly have a passion and an interest for, and then move on to volunteering in those activities, developing more leadership opportunities in those activities. That's what colleges are looking for. And then the third one I'd like to tell them is to start looking for colleges in our local area. We are so lucky in Illinois to have a vast amount of colleges within an hour and a half drive. Now, students don't need to look at these colleges with the idea that's where my parents are going to send me. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But the bottom line here is it's a good place to start taking a look at size, location, what does this campus offer, how do I feel like I would fit in, what's the surrounding area like, how do these kids get around. I just think they need to ask themselves some questions. They've done a great job at high school at manipulating the whole system because they have become aware of it from freshmen through seniors. At colleges, they start all over again. And if they can get some idea of what they want, where they think they would be healthy, survive, I think that's really what we're looking for.
So how can parents and students get in touch with you?
The contact information for us, we're so lucky. A lot of our clients do come from direct referrals. So I do have a LinkedIn profile. Otherwise, they can contact me at, my email is dlavoy@prodigy.net. And our home phone number is area code 630-466-9731. And I would like to mention that if any parent is interested, that initial consultation is at no charge. Sometimes we can help families, sometimes there are families we cannot. And we need to talk about that when they come in.
Excellent. Well, Dottie, thank you so much for joining us and telling us about the services you offer, because they're clearly very much needed by many, many families that are facing this really major decision.
It's a big expense.
Absolutely. So
thank you. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for another episode of Batavia Spotlight. I'm your host, Ellen Huxtable. Catch up on previous episodes on our website, mybatv.com, and follow us on Facebook at BATV1017. Thanks for watching.